Jake Kreul commits to the team on the northern side of the Red River, and Oklahoma's new star quarterback John Mateer gets drawn into a little bit of a scandal, if that's what you want to call it. We will refer to it as Venmo Gate. And Bill Bedenbaugh discusses the Sooners' offensive line with the media. Hello, Oklahoma fans, college football fans. Welcome into Oklahoma at the Voice of College Football. This is Oklahoma Sooners Live. We are live right now on X as well as YouTube. But just a quick warning to those watching on X, make sure to jump over to the YouTube channel because we will be cutting that live stream on X right around 7:15 mark is when we'll cut that. We've got a lot to get into. Finally, some news, some good news that we can get to. Of course, I know I'm not going to dwell on it too much. Davian Gross did not commit to Oklahoma, but we can dwell on the fact that we've got some good news with a big time commit with Jake Kreul coming into Oklahoma. One that we were highly anticipating and wondering how it was all going to play out. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But first, make sure to follow the Voice of College Football on social media. Keep up with everything that we've got going on here. If you're a college football fan, this is the place to go. So make sure to follow the Voice of College Football on all social media, and as well as the network all over the place here on YouTube as well. So we're definitely growing and doing a lot of big things. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast, give us a 5-star review. It's the best way to help us over on those platforms and help us grow. Let's get into it first by talking about the good news from just earlier today. We had the 4-star edge, Jake Kreul. He's a big-time edge rusher out of IMG Academy. He committed to Oklahoma on the Pat McAfee show earlier this morning. Some news that Oklahoma fans were quite fearful of and wondering, okay, great, how is this going to end? But nonetheless, on the good side for Oklahoma, the 6'3", 240-pound pass rusher machine. He had ended up choosing the Sooners over Ole Miss and Texas, becoming number 16 for commits in the OU's 2026 class. And Rivals had him ranked at the number 8 edge overall and 41 prospect overall in the entire class across the entire nation. Oklahoma's been locked into Krell for quite some time now. They've been really looking at him, and he was definitely one of the most coveted targets really in this cycle, I think across the nation, but specifically for Oklahoma. They decided on him. He was Oklahoma was his first Power 4 offer on the table, and they kept that relationship strong, made sure to make their push right there towards the end. And just as we talked about on Thursday, a little concerning with moving that date up to commit a little earlier than what was originally planned. But it ended up being a good one for the Sooners because, thinking about the Sooners, they actually led for Jake Kreul heading into the summer. But then, of course, with his official visit in late June, that's obviously what sealed the deal. And then, of course, he had other visits throughout. And that always raised some eyebrows and raised some questions, wondering just how all of that might play out. And of course, with Jake Kreul, he mentioned how he loves OU, and he's mentioned that to the staff. He's mentioned that to media, and he uses their edge rushers, even pointing out how similar how his game is to our Mason Thomas, how similar those two are to each other in their game and how they play the game. And our Mason Thomas, he's one. Obviously, for Oklahoma fans, we already know this, but he's projected as a first-round NFL draft pick, possibly second at the latest. And so that's some big shoes to fill. But that's something that I think he sees that in himself. But I think also media that has seen him, or even scouts that have seen him, coaches, they all compare his play and his game style to our Mason Thomas, which is something that Oklahoma fans love to hear. You can't get too much higher than that on a kid by comparing him to one of the best on the roster and a guy that will go to the NFL. And as long as that's the path that he chooses, that's where he's going. Obviously, going back to, I believe it was in June, whenever Jake Kreul had his visit. During that visit, he didn't just walk around campus. He didn't just kind of look around and have a good time. Instead, he actually dove into some film and did some study, broke down Oklahoma's scheme, and really kind of figured out exactly what that fit would be for him and how he could fit in with Oklahoma. And that to me screams football guy. That to me screams this is a guy that is absolutely worth getting and obviously fighting for. And that's exactly what Oklahoma did and ended up winning that fight. Just thinking of how much time he spent trying to figure out if this was the best fit for him and how he could fit into this system. I mean, that's something special that, especially for a kid that young and going into this big stage, being able to make that decision to go in, not just to go in somewhere and do what you might do on a normal visit, maybe get some fun photo shoots and hang out around campus, see how the campus life looks like outside of just in the football facility. But instead, he decided to spend that at the football facility, showing how much this game means to him. He's also spent a lot of time with, players, specifically the players in the edge room, that defensive line room, and spent time with R. Mason Thomas himself quite a bit, and R. Mason Thomas was kind of like his host there during his visits too. So again, making him feel at home and making him feel welcome here within the building. And of course, one of the greats that can tell you how much he's been able to develop at the University of Oklahoma, definitely something worth your while, being able to go through and have R. Mason Thomas, of all people, kind of hosting and taking you around and showing you things and helping you out whenever you're on your visit. Jake Kreul even kind of joined the team during a lift, came away impressed by the culture, the energy within the building. And he's talked a lot about that with how much he loves everything about, the University of Oklahoma and what they do within this football program. So very big news getting him. And of course, for Jake Kreul, not just the football side of things, but Jake Kreul even says that he loves Norman's college town atmosphere, which I think anybody that's visited Norman has had that same feeling. It's one of those atmospheres. I think it brings in that small town atmosphere, which I think a lot of recruits like, especially whenever they themselves might come from southern smaller towns, of course, that's something. But of course, big enough where you've got plenty to go to. I think Norman's a pretty good college town, and it does compete with many other college towns, especially for what Jake Kreul was looking for. So he absolutely loved that. Kind of reminded him of other SEC schools that he'd been to. He saw some of the tradition, the SEC type tradition, or the traditional SEC environment there in Norman, which again, high praise for Norman, coming from one of the highly touted, the highly envied recruits. That's exactly what you want to hear. And of course, he's expecting electric game days with passionate fans, kind of packing the stadium. He knows what Oklahoma's all about. And of course, he's going to be able to find that out. He's going to be able to see that on September 6th. Correct me if I've got that date wrong, when Michigan comes to town, and he's going to be there in person. I know we talked about that with Parker Thune on Thursday, and I talked with him and mentioning how Jake Kreul making that decision on Tuesday kind of seemed like, for Oklahoma fans, oh crap, he's making this decision before Oklahoma is able to prove what they're going to be this season. That might be a bad thing. But if he can still come to that Michigan game, maybe Oklahoma has a chance to flip him back over to Oklahoma for that official commit and actually sign with Oklahoma. And of course, that was all speculation at the time, but now we don't have to worry about it. Now Oklahoma fans can sit back, relax, and know exactly where he feels very committed. And the fact that he's able and willing to commit this early says a lot about Jake Kreul and how he feels about the Sooners. And of course, with the Oklahoma Sooners, like I mentioned, they beat out Ole Miss and Texas in the final stretch. But Jake Kreul's commitment, I mean, it was big. I mean, you think of his recruitment and what he was going through, and how many schools reached out to him, with teams like Florida, Miami, Ohio State, Penn State. They were all in the mix. They were all teams that were pressing hard for Jake Kreul, wanted him on their roster. And of course, he ended up making to Oklahoma fans the right decision, but making the decision that just made most sense when you look at a player who wants to feel like a part of something. Oklahoma made him feel a part of something from the very get-go, from the beginning, being that first team in the door, that first team to really make a big offer. And so, there was a lot that went into this recruitment for Oklahoma, and, very big one at that. And I feel like I keep on repeating that, but that's obviously something that is worth noting. Just take this in, bask in the glory of good commits when you can get them, because obviously Oklahoma fans feel like they haven't really gotten those big time, especially when they build up like that. Oklahoma fans have lost out. Davian Gross being one of the most recent ones, but instead they were able to secure Jake Kreul's commitment really big, and seeing how much he loves the university. That's isn't really a guy who's going to shy away from any kind of competition either. He knows that Oklahoma is going to have a stacked room at that edge position like they do this season. He knows that he's not going to be the best player that steps through those doors in Norman, but he knows that he played at a very high level in high school, and of course the Under Armour All-American game as well this past January. He showed off his talent against some of the best in the country. And he loves that competition. He loves being able to show off that competition. And bottom line with Jake Kreul is that OU landed an elite pass rusher. At least the ceiling is very high. And of course, the floor is also fairly high for being the commit that he is, and who he is, and what he brings to the table. And of course, he's bought into the scheme. He fits the scheme, the culture, the community. It was a big win for Brent Venables and this staff. And absolutely one that they will take in for a little while. Of course, if you look at the fans on the south side of the Red River, this is something I came across on social media. I believe I was looking on X earlier today and looking at some of the stuff going on. And of course, when big commits like this happen, then the fans of the team that was hoping to get him, and if they felt so confident that they were going to get him, they get irritated, they get frustrated, right? And Oklahoma fans do the same. And, Oklahoma fans get frustrated that, we didn't secure the guy that felt like a sure thing. Even down the stretch, it felt like, for this instance, Jake Kreul, man, like it felt like he should have gone to Texas. That was the talk leading up to it. And Oklahoma fans, Oklahoma media, including myself and Parker, even said, listen, I know what this looks like. It does look like Texas is kind of favored at this point. All signs say that they're not. All signs say that Jake Kreul's still coming to Oklahoma, but I don't know. All signs are kind of leading towards, I don't know, maybe he's leaning towards Texas now. But obviously that wasn't the case, and Texas fans had a day on the Texas boards. I won't mention names. I'm not going to go that far, but Texas fans on certain message boards looking around there, they say one user said, "Good luck with that trailer trash and losing." Okay, that was a good insult. That was a typical Oklahoma, Okie, redneck Okie kind of insult. Sure, okay, we'll take that one. That one stings a little bit. And then the next one, is he dumb or scared of competition? He has to be one of the two. No logical reason to choose OU. Total douche move by this kid. Will consider forgiving if he chooses the good guys after Venables is fired. Otherwise, he is dead to me, except when I celebrate his future failures. Okay, this one just didn't make any sense. For one, I don't understand why you trash a kid, and that an 18-year-old kid that's trying to, 17, 18-year-old kid that's trying to make one of the biggest decisions of their life at that moment. I mean, it is the biggest decision of their life. They're choosing where they're going to potentially spend the next 3 to 4 years. Of course, in today's day and age, it's not always that case, but that's what their decision is all about. So I don't understand trashing an 18-year-old kid, 17, 18-year-old kid at all. That's kind of low of you. But then to say this, is he dumb or scared of competition? Okay, so he went to Oklahoma because he's scared of competition, but Oklahoma plays who? Their competition is Texas. So are you saying that if he would have gone to Oklahoma, if he would have gone to Texas, he was not scared of the competition because Oklahoma is the tough competition? If that's the case, then he couldn't have been dumb by choosing Oklahoma because, yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to understand the logic here. It's not really making any sense. Anyways, no, just silly overreactions to something that, again, with Texas too. Texas has had a good recruiting cycle too, so I don't really know what they would be freaking out about this one as much as they have. I've seen a lot more, but another one calling Jake Kreul a loser. Okay, Sure. Yeah. We'll see. And another one saying, "Have fun in the Alamo Bowl," as if you think Oklahoma is just going to go 6-6 again and make it to the Alamo Bowl. I think if that's how Texas fans are predicting Oklahoma's season, now I don't think you can actually point to something and give a good reason why Oklahoma would go 6-6 again this season. I don't think that's out there. I know I'm a little biased. I am an Oklahoma fan. I will admit that. But I just don't think that there's evidence to show that you could point out and say, yeah, Oklahoma's not going to make it past 6 wins this season, and this is why. They have a tough schedule, but look at what Oklahoma did for 6 wins last season. And then this season, some of those games that were tougher last season should be easier in some sense because, for one, they have a competent offense, and two, Oklahoma still has just as good of a defense. Anyways, moving on from that, just kind of funny to dive through some of the message boards that were put out there to see all the overreaction with Jake Kreul. Very exciting. So here was one of the things that I thought, and I know Parker and I talked about this on Thursday whenever I was talking to Parker Thune, is that with Jake Kreul announcing his commitment on Tuesday, today, instead of announcing it further on and going into the season, the thing that made Oklahoma fans a little nervous about this early commitment was, oh, he's made his decision because he doesn't care, about what Oklahoma maybe he wants to see what Oklahoma does, but he feels that Oklahoma's not going in the right direction, and so he's going to make his commitment to Texas because they are the ones that are obviously in the lead right now as far as who's had the better seasons here recently. So maybe that's why he's making this commitment so early. That's what was going through my head. I sat here in this exact chair on this exact screen and said that myself. And so that's what it felt like. But instead, what that seems to me was that Jake Kreul was saying, you know what? I know Texas is ahead right now, but I see what Oklahoma provides, what they offer, how they're able to develop me. I see what Oklahoma's got building up for them into this upcoming season. I have faith that this is going to be a good team, and I have faith that I'm going to be able to win some championships here. I have faith that I'm going to at least be competing for those championships. So I'm going to make my commitment now. They've been pressing hard this entire time. Why put it on the back burner any longer? Instead, he made his commitment right away, made it early, which was quite the opposite of what I think Oklahoma and Texas fans kind of felt with Jake Kreul's commitment. So, big time commitment. And again, main storyline there was that he was settled in for where he got his first Power 4 offer. And he was happy with what he saw from Oklahoma. So obviously Oklahoma fans have something big to rejoice for Jake Kreul's commitment. And making that commitment over your rival is just that much more sweet. But anyways, for everyone who is watching over on X, real quick reminder, jump over to the YouTube channel, search for Oklahoma at the Voice of College Football on YouTube. And if you're not already subscribed, jump over there and subscribe for us real quick. We are going to be cutting off that stream on X as we've gotten to that point in the night. But for everyone who is still on YouTube, obviously, same things going as always. But we're going to jump into the next one, another big time, a big time headline, I suppose you could say, something that was going all over social media last night. And, as soon as it came out, my, how do you say this? My BS radar kind of went off. This doesn't seem right. And of course, I'm not the only one that felt that way. I've got a guest to come on to talk with me about it. His name is Blake Gamble over with KREF. Blake, thank you so much for joining, man.
Hey, Josh, thank you so much for having me. And man, you're smarter than I am because I'll admit I took the bait. I was, like so many people, I Venmo'd people 1,000 times and put, goofy things in there. But the fact that they were so specific, I was a little worried at first, and it wasn't until the show this morning, the Plank show with my host Chris Plank. We were talking about it for a bit, and we were spitting theories back and forth. And I kind of dug into one of the main profiles a little bit and was like, "Hold on, just a sec. Let's look into this guy a little bit more."
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll kind of break it down for those of you who maybe don't follow all that stuff. I know that I saw several posting on different forum groups. Hey, what's going on with this? I'm hearing this headline, and what's going on here. So first, this name of Brian Aguada, I guess would be his name. He broke this. I'll say fake news because again, from what we know now, I think we can make a pretty definitive statement about the fact that this wasn't real. It seems like everything else is kind of being pushed to the side. We'll get to that. But he dropped this news with a screenshot of John Mateer's Venmo account showing transaction descriptions of sports gambling, and like you said too, Blake, that they were pretty descriptive too. They were very detailed. One of them even had the specific game of USC UCLA and this would have been back in his freshman year when he's really on the bench. And so yeah, I thought that was weird at first. My first instinct was, I guess, obviously the wrong one, at least from what I know right now. My first instinct was this was somebody else's account that was, changing their name to John Mateer or something, or maybe it was photoshopped. And I didn't really look into it very much further. I just thought, like, I don't know, this just seems a little too fishy. But then, of course, going further, more reports coming out about it, more people saying, "Hey, I just looked up this Venmo account and it really does." That's whenever I figured, okay, somebody else just changed their name to John Mateer. Isn't that available? Or can't you do that on Venmo? So, why not? And of course, the big conspiracy is that a Texas fan is the one that kind of got all this brewing and got this all started. And the first thing I saw was Deadspin. I've heard Deadspin have multiple. They are renowned for just having hey, let's throw this out here, and it's just kind of like almost the Onion post, out there,
Right.
or
Yeah.
Babylon B.
Yeah.
And so I just don't trust anything coming from them. But then, of course, today I saw your post. That's why I wanted you to come on and talk about this, where you really dove in and started doing some investigative reporting. Kind of break that down. You started breaking this down and found out that this Brian guy was not even who he was saying he was on his profile. I'll kind of let you dive into that a little bit deeper.
Right. And I mean, in the day and age of Twitter, we're all familiar with burner accounts. I mean, there's been famous people like Kevin Durant that's been, exposed for using or trying to use his burner account, but accidentally, tweeting with his own account accidentally. So we're familiar with that. But once something like this started getting so much traction, it had 3 million impressions this morning. It's now well over five, probably eight or more now at this point. There's big, legitimate news organizations. ESPN was picking it up, Fox Sports is picking it up and running with it. Then it was like, okay, who is this person? Who's starting with it? And your Twitter bio in a weird way is kind of your public resume these days. And so this Brian Aguada guy, it said insider at Deadspin, senior journalist at Valley News Live, featured in a couple different things that I'd heard of, like Monday Morning Quarterback. And so I just clicked on Valley News Live because I'd never heard of it. It's a legitimate website, a little small news publication channel in Fargo, North Dakota. And I mentioned it on our show, and for some reason that caught my eye, and I was like, you know what? I bet they've got a phone number. I'm going to give them a call during the break. And sure enough, I did. Our text line, we're a very interactive show. So our text line just, lit up at that idea. First, they were like, call them on the air. That's going to be great radio. And Plank was like, no, no, no. You got to do it on the break. So I called him on the break, and I asked the lady that answered, I was like, does a Brian Aguada work there? And she was like, Iguana? Like, literally thought I was asking for someone named Iguana. And she'd worked there for a couple years, never heard of anybody, and said, I'm gonna reach out to the head person here and have them call you back. And sure enough, not too long after our show ended, I got a call back. They looked through all of their employee records because they didn't want to be tied up with this,
Yeah.
and had never been associated with Brian Aguada. Never heard of him, never worked there. I had just done a Google image search too, because at that point I was really suspicious. And his picture, Josh, is a picture of a hockey player, a guy who it was a picture of the guy whenever he played collegiately, like 8 years ago, but now he's a pro hockey player for the Columbus Blue Jackets, and so that is a whole other web, and just a funky twist to a story that had me and so many others that follow the Sooners, love the Sooners, just in a tailspin. Yesterday was a bad day, I think, for those that were hopeful about Davian Gross, and I mean, what a difference a day can make too, can it?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was pretty crazy, and then the fact that you you went through all that, kind of did some investigative, research, some investigative journalism itself, just kind of going in on this guy, yeah, and then even finding out that even the image that he uses as his own profile isn't even true. So, and I'm assuming he probably doesn't even work for Deadspin, which,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
someone
that's the other thing.
commented they had searched on there, and there was nothing with his name. When you just Google the name, the only thing that really comes up are some results on like bodybuilding.com. There's an Instagram account. It's I don't think it's the guy. I think it's just a complete burner account. But I did get some interesting comments. A lot of Texas fans, as you would expect, and surprisingly, a ton of Michigan fans that were some blowback to that about, well, this doesn't change anything just because it's not a real legitimate account. Those screenshots could very well still be real. And, this could still lead to a full investigation. And, you know, if I really want to dig into their, obviously biased perspectives, I guess I could see their point a little bit, but at the same time, I think you have to consider the source, especially when you think about how is anything going to be proven in this case. It's very different from, a transaction when you think about other college football betting scandals. The guys at Iowa State and Iowa, they were making transactions on actual gambling apps. They had bank records and statements to go with it. This is no different from a couple of guys, splitting a pizza and, putting something on there saying, hey, here's 20 bucks for cocaine or something like that. And it's like that, they're not going to knock on your door. The police aren't going to arrest you for that. They can't prove that. It is what it is. And I really like the statement and OU and Mateer just coming out in front of it today and saying, all right, this happened. Yeah, it was a distraction, onward and upward.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and to your point too, going back, I've said this about several cases of players who have been caught, even in specific, and they've been caught red-handed gambling. But
Sure.
a lot of the players that I have even seen that get caught gambling, I've had this same defense. If it's on another team that has nothing to do with you, it, can there not? I mean, I'm okay with a slap on the wrist because you broke the rules. But what would be the big deal about that? For this instance, this is a
Yeah.
freshman quarterback who's sitting on the bench at Washington State, and him and his buddies say, "Hey, I'll bet you $10 that USC or that UCLA beats USC." All right, I'll take that bet, and they put a little wager against each other. What is the harm in that where you have no outcome of what could happen? And it was between two teammates on the same team. I don't understand what the big fuss would be about any of that. And I say the same, like I said, about the players that have been caught in the past, placing bets. Now, if they're placing a bet on their own team or on themselves,
Right.
okay, yeah, we've got an issue. There's obviously something there.
Yeah, no, I get that too. I mean, it's just such a slippery slope, I feel like. And, you know, professional sports and the sports books and everyone have certainly really been enforcing it. It seems like you can't go a couple weeks without a new athlete that there's an investigation about, whether it's point shaving or, there was the pitcher for Cleveland just a couple weeks ago that is being investigated for intentionally throwing a ball because there was a lot of pitches, whatever, a lot of money going in on a certain specific pitch. And you just don't want any buzz surrounding your starting quarterback, potentially. It's not even that, there's no harm there. It's just that what else could come from it, the distractions that could be there. And I think that's why They have those meetings with players every single year before the season starts. As soon as you step foot on campus, it's just, hey, don't go there. This is what comes with this territory.
Yeah. Well, and from the other side of the aisle too, the biggest argument that I've had, against it, saying, well, obviously he's guilty, is why would you put sports gambling in
Right.
the title then? Why
Right.
would you?
Yeah.
It is a bonehead mistake, and you
Yeah.
shouldn't do that. And obviously, John Mateer even realizes that that's what he mentioned in his statement. It was like, yeah, shouldn't have done that. That was wrong. I get the severity of everything that I did, but that's not what it was for. And it was, whatever it was for. That's not what it was. Is what they say. And and honestly, and you mentioned this as well, is that how do you prove that? How do you go back to
Yeah.
2022 and say that you paid $10 to your buddy or however much it was? I didn't see the totals. I don't know if they were shown or anything, or if you can see that. But
I don't
uh,
think
you
they
know,
did. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know how you could possibly prove that that's actually the reason for
Sure.
why you paid somebody. So yeah, that's kind of the other thing to kind of go on with the story.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any plans to do this, but I can't imagine someone, putting a message on Venmo saying, tax fraud or money laundering or anything
Yeah.
like that. Typically, you're not going to just openly admit that you're doing that. But, I guess, when you're that age, your frontal lobe isn't fully developed. There's been other mistakes made before by college athletes, so it wouldn't be a complete first, but yeah, it would be surprising. And, I guess at least we got a storyline this fall camp that wasn't injury related, right?
Yeah, that's definitely a good thing, I guess. You can throw in an
Yeah.
extra, and it's one to laugh at too. Personally, I
Yeah.
think like nothing's going to come about it, because like how do you enforce this? And so you can step back as an Oklahoma fan, just be like, man, like I'm glad it did. I'm glad everything came out the way it did, but and it doesn't seem like anything is going to come about it. But at the same time, let's stay away from that kind of wording. And I even used this example, I think, earlier today. It's like I have several charges. I think on Venmo, I think I have mine as private, because I think that's weird to be able to see people's charges to, or their
Right.
transactions with other people. I just think that's weird. But if you were able to go on my Venmo and see it, it would have several from my cousin that have a baby emoji and a shower emoji and saying congrats. I
Uh-huh.
don't have any kids.
Right.
So,
Yes.
so that stuff definitely happens, and especially with college kids. And John Mateer is known for being kind of that cracking jokes kind of guy. And obviously, let's not put sports gambling in those descriptions.
Yeah, I got to imagine a record high amount of transaction histories were set to private over the last 24 hours on
Yeah.
Venmo, just based on college athletes alone. Thanks to this story coming out, I know at our station, someone was joking just about that, and so I had the idea is like, oh, really? You got some funny things in your history, and I was like, let me look that up, and they just ran to their phone and were just like, nope, I'm changing the settings right now.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
As soon as I realized that was a thing, I was like, even if I am just sending $5 over to split the pizza, I don't want everybody to be able to go in
right.
there and see who I'm paying. That's a weird feature, and I don't
Internet
understand
lived
it.
forever. It's
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, absolutely something to show, to show to everybody else. Make sure to go to your Venmo real quick and just set it to private. If Cash App or any of these other apps do the same thing, make sure to double check on those as well, because you may not have even known that was a thing, and you could get yourself in trouble at work. So just be safe out there, guys. But anyways, Blake, I appreciate you coming on tonight. Real quick before I let you go, let
yep.
everybody know where they can find your work.
Yeah. I'm on Twitter at Blake's_takes. Blake Gamble's my name. Ironically, it just happened to be a story about gambling that I got in my 15 seconds. I'm not a journalist at all. I just played one today on the radio. Entertainment's my thing. You can listen to me 6 to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday on the Plank Show on the Ref, and we podcast it anywhere you can listen to it.
And have you gotten any kind of investigation? I guess what would that be? An investigative journalism job offers coming through on your LinkedIn or anything?
No, no, nothing like that. I might have a new nickname on the show. They're trying to come up with it. I'm new to being on the air, just about
Yeah.
2.5 months into it, and they've been trying to come up with a nickname. I haven't liked any of the nominees so far, so it might be like a Secret Agent Blake or something like that. So we're working on it still, but who knows? Maybe there'll be more work to come in the future.
Yeah, I'm sure. Plank can come up with something for you. So,
Yeah.
especially around this one. But no, Blake, I appreciate you hopping on tonight. You have yourself a good rest of the night.
Hey, thank you, Josh.
All right, everybody. We will get to the live chat in here in just a moment. Before we do, a real quick word from the owner of Voice of College Football, the founder, Mark Rogers.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks: 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and then select a betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.
All right, go check that out real quick to keep on supporting the not only this channel but the entire network here at Voice of College Football. Mark does an amazing show as well if you're into listening to more than just Oklahoma content. So another thing too is, I know last week we were supposed to have started our SEC live show over on SEC at the Voice of College Football. Tomorrow, Blake Lane and I, he is the host of Auburn at the Voice of College Football, used to be a host of trying to remember what his the Uptempo podcast, but then ended up coming over here to the Voice of College Football Network. Him and I are going to be talking all SEC football. So jump over to SEC at the Voice of College Football, hit that subscribe button over there, and we will be going live tomorrow, as long as I don't hit my head again. Yeah, that is the only reason why we're kind of kept out of it. I had an injury and kept myself away from doing any kind of thinking, any kind of trying to get words to come out of my mouth kind of thing, because it's hard enough. It's even just as is. It's even harder a few hours after you hit your head. But anyways, jump over there, because we will be going live tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time over on SEC at the Voice of College Football for SEC Prime Time Live. So check us out over there if you want to hear more about the SEC. And we will be talking Oklahoma. We'll be talking Auburn. We'll be talking all the other teams as well, kind of mixed in there. So join us over there. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And we'll have a lot going on those shows, and especially as we get closer to the season. I'm going to jump to the live chat real quick, so make sure you are in the live chat. Everybody hit that like button as well. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We've been pumping out content like crazy here on this channel, trying to give as much as we possibly can. A quick reminder for everybody who likes to jump in the live chat: if you want your live chat to be read, you can throw in a donation super chat, and it will be read on the show. Otherwise, you can also support the channel by becoming a member today. That link is in the description below to become a member of this channel. It starts as just as little as $2.99 a month. Helps us keep on growing, helps us to keep on pumping out even more content and doing more for Oklahoma fans. But just wanted to jump in here. This one came before the show even started, and I was looking at it and just confused by it. And I'm going to mention it just because I think this is such an odd mentality. Unsubbed, not listening to anyone that talks about QB1. First of all, I said the whole story was a joke. And second of all, I was talking good about QB1. So I don't understand this at all. But okay, we'll see you next time. Hopefully we get your subscribed, your subscription, your following. Hopefully we get that back. But anyways, oh well, on to the next. I know Mars is on my side. What do you want me to speak about, especially in the off season when there's a big news headline that pops up? Guess what the point of this show is? To talk about those big news headlines. So, and I thought getting Blake on, I wasn't going to talk about it, but getting Blake Gamble from KREF on with me, I messaged him earlier today. I was like, hey, would you want to hop on and talk about some of that? Because I thought it was hilarious how he basically exposed this guy, and it was all just kind of on accident. It wasn't like he really dove into the story real deep or anything. He just kind of fell upon it and ended up going down this rabbit trail. And so I thought that was the funny part. That was the part that I wanted to bring out to you guys. And so hopefully those of you who decided not to unsubscribe and listen enjoyed Blake's little journalism there. Like you said, he's not a journalist or anything like that, but he was diving into it today. Had to do a little bit of criminal research here and finding out the backstory to what all it is there. Jonathan is in the chat. What's up, Jonathan? He says, hypothetically, if Mateer had been suspended and OU had another bad year, would Venables get another mulligan? No. I was on the fence about trying to defend Brent Venables last season. I was. Because on one hand, the injuries were a thing, but on the other hand, the offense was only so bad and so atrocious because of the offensive coordinator that he hired. So I was really on the fence last season. There's no excuse this season. Even with, if John Mateer was out, guess what? We know what Michael Hawkins is capable of, and we've heard nothing but good things about him from spring camp to summer to fall, and how now in fall, the people who are watching him closely, the coaches and the media both, talking about Michael Hawkins in a very big way. So even if John Mateer were not on the field game one, guess what? Michael Hawkins is not a bad backup to have at all. Of course, we're glad that we don't have to deal with that. But, that's something just to take a note of, is that Oklahoma doesn't have any excuses this year. The depth is so much better on the offensive side of the ball. The offensive play calling is expected to be so much better. And if it's not, then again, that goes on Brent Venables. There's no more excuses. But I do like that hypothetical. I do like it, especially in prediction season. Speaking of prediction season, we're going to get a big guest on soon. I shouldn't jump ahead of myself. Let's not get there. But Sooner Cowboys is in the chat. What is up, Sooner Cowboys? He says, John Moneybags Mateer. Yeah, absolutely. Let's just be glad that all of this is going to be put underneath the rug, and there's probably going to be a big meeting about, if there hasn't been already, about, hey, everybody, let's be careful about what we're doing, because what we did 3 years ago could still pop up today. So definitely something worth mentioning there. But I also see Jimmy Satterfield in the chat as well. Got to shout out Jimmy because he is a resident here on the show. Again, everybody, if you want your chats, feel free to ask any questions, concerns, comments about what's been going on with the Oklahoma Sooners, anything. If you want that read on the show, super chats and donations will be read live on the show tonight. But Bill Bedenbaugh stepped in front of the media here. I guess this would have been yesterday. And he was able to talk a little bit about his offensive line and how he feels with how they've been looking in fall camp. And we heard a lot of good things from Bill Bedenbaugh. Again, I know we don't want to feed into too much of the hype and the talk, but you're hearing things that weren't being said about this team a season ago. And you're also hearing things that weren't said with the same tenacity, with the same energy as you're hearing from the media and from the coaches this season. And I think that's worth taking note of. Now, you can take it for what it's worth. Again, all of this is just talk. It is just fall camp, and they haven't played a single game yet. But take it for what it's worth. I enjoy listening to any of the coaches speaking and kind of diving down and seeing what they see, hear what they say. Hear what they see from the team and everything. Yeah, I think that's important. But he talked a lot about trust, playing time, how he's really emphasized this season about consistency, not to try to show any kind of flashy athleticism and big time plays, but just consistency from making sure you're doing your job each play. If you focus on your job each play, nothing can go wrong. You have to do what you're supposed to do. You can't focus on anybody else. You have to be consistent and do it every play. That's something that he's been focusing on a lot this offseason, and especially this fall camp. And he's been talking about how players are earning trust, and he talked about specific players. I think he talked a lot about the younger players, and we'll get to that in just a moment. And, talking about them and how they're doing things right and repeatedly, not just big plays. Again, not just focusing on those big athletic plays and the things that they're doing there, but focusing on each play and doing it consistently. That's big for Bill Bedenbaugh going into this season, and love to hear that. And he's also talked about the good competition. He talked about how especially on the interior of the line, how there's a lot of competition building up, and where this starting five in the front could be so much different than what we've predicted here on this show or anywhere across Sooner media, and that's something that is very interesting. So I'm very excited to see what that line ends up looking like, because the competition is 100% a good thing. You didn't really hear any competition from a season ago. There was a little bit, and there might have been some competition from the standpoint of so-and-so's not doing well, and so we think so-and-so might be able to start over them, or so-and-so is battling injuries that were a huge issue a season ago, but you didn't. And again, I know we're trying to keep away from talking about those, but anyways, just bringing that up real quick, just those were the things that we saw. Bill Bedenbaugh even talked about the experience and some of that experience that's brought out this season compared to what Oklahoma was fighting with last season. Really no experience up on that line, no cohesion, no chemistry between those front five guys. And again, it was the injuries that kept on rotating guys in and out nonstop. And he talked about that actually being a good thing for this season, that they were able to get some valuable game time and some game experience for some of those younger guys. And he also was talking a little bit about Logan and Heath. So Logan Howland, Heath Ozada, missing spring ball a little bit, but they're improving. They're getting better, coming off their shoulder injuries. Kind of ramping up to that point of getting back out there full string. And he's talked about this offensive line as a whole, talking about how he's seen the biggest jump from this offensive line here more recently in the last week or two of camp. And that's huge. You love to hear that from Bill Bedenbaugh and how much faith he has in his guys. Bill Bedenbaugh talked to the media also about the player development and some of these younger guys, again, putting that trust in these younger guys and how they've earned trust in a lot of ways. He talked about Eddie Pierre-Louis and how he's being more flexible. He kind of needs a little bit better pad level, Bill Bedenbaugh mentioned. And, kind of talking about his eyes and his hands, how he can improve. And that's the scary thing about Eddie Pierre-Louis, is that he has room to improve, and he's already a monster. Bill B loves the physical, the hard playing that you get from Eddie Pierre-Louis. But he also talked about how sometimes he can get a little bit out of control, needs a little bit kind of control that aggression, because you don't want to have a huge play and then become Michael Orr and drive a guy through the back of the end zone and then have to back that play back up, or get too aggressive and get penalties called on you for whatever the case may be. So he has kind of talked a little bit about that, which again, you love to. That's why I like Bill Bedenbaugh. I think Brent Venables does the same thing, where they will talk about some flaws that they see in their guys that they want to work on, and that's a good one to have. To control your aggression, I think that's a good problem to have. Love to hear that from Bill B about Eddie Pierre-Louis. Coach Bedenbaugh also talked about Troy Everett, kind of talking about his leadership and how he has been an unquestionable, big time leader in that offensive line group, and how he's gotten bigger, stronger. He's right around that 315-pound mark, playing really the best since arriving here in this fall camp. And that being said, he's still going through some competition as well. And we've mentioned that here on the show. So definitely something to look at there with Troy Everett. Again, a guy that we want to bounce back and we want to have a big season this year. And we're excited to see what he's able to put together. Bill Bedenbaugh also mentioned Derek Simmons when he was talking to the media. Derek Simmons, kind of how big, athletic. I mean, he's a big dude. Seeing him next to somebody, I haven't seen Derek Simmons in person. I don't think. Trying to think back. I don't think I've seen him in person to be able to compare myself to him, but I've been able to compare other people that I have been next to in person. and seeing his size. I mean, he's a monster of a human being. And Bill Bedenbaugh kind of talked about that, and also how athletic he is, how intelligent he is, his high football IQ, talking about that, and how he's learning this offense really well. Absolutely love to hear that from Derek Simmons, the transfer that came in, and kind of adjusting to that SEC competition. When you're going against that defensive line, you're going to get used to SEC competition, because that is the definition of an SEC defensive line. So Derek Simmons coming along pretty well, according to Bill Bedenbaugh, as well as Jacob Sexton, how he has improved quite a bit in the pass sets early in camp, and he's kind of dunning a lot. And of course, he needs to kind of work on that consistency. Bill Bedenbaugh kind of talked about that with Jacob Sexton's in his game, is that he needs to kind of remove some of that inconsistency from his games, making sure that he doesn't do something right on one play, but then screw it up the next, and just focusing on, again, one play at a time, focusing on that one thing that you've got to do each play, rather than trying to jump ahead of yourself. Just focus on that consistency. And that was a big thing to note about Jacob Sexton. And he even mentioned, again, talking about that trust and earning trust with the younger guys specifically. He talked about the freshmen with Michael Fasusi and Ryan Foje, and talking about how they are not afraid. They're not afraid of getting in there, getting in and getting dirty. And they're not afraid of the competition. They're confident young guys, and they're learning quickly. And they both just turned 18 not too long ago. And he talked about how impressive they are for their age, and how he really feels like they're ready. They're ready to get in there and get their hands dirty and do something. It's a matter of, will they? Probably not this season, but it very well, you could see them on the field though. Especially when we talk about some of these smaller teams that Oklahoma is going to be going against, like Illinois State or Temple or Kent State. You could see those younger guys step up and make an impact, especially some of these freshmen like Ryan Foje and Michael Fasusi. Been hearing a lot of good things out of them from camp, and even more good things coming from Coach Bill Bedenbaugh. The depth in the competition up on the offensive line is one that I think Oklahoma fans should be most excited about going into this season, because that has been the biggest adjustment, the biggest improvement from last season into this season. Again, it's hard to really compare it to last season. It really is, because there are other factors that go into it, but it's also, do you really want to compare it to the worst that this offensive line or this offense as a whole has been in such a long time? But I do think it tells you that the fact that there is no way of comparing the two, because they're so vastly different, is a good thing in many ways. The fact that there aren't direct comparables, and you can compare in that way, that if that makes any sense, that's where I find a good thing. Because last season we didn't see the depth, we didn't see the competition that we're starting to see in fall camp this season, or maybe not necessarily see for many of us as fans, but definitely hearing both from the coaches and the media. So that's something that Bill Bedenbaugh expressed quite a bit when he was talking to the media here this week, and talking about how much more experience and depth there is this season compared to last season. And he feels that. He sees that. He feels really good about where Oklahoma's at and that offensive line is at, with the depth and competition that they bring in. And Bill Bedenbaugh was even talking about how six to seven guys that he feels could really win, and they could really get themselves into a really good spot for a starting position or a lot of playing time right now. But obviously really still early in camp, even though we're only just over 2 weeks away from game time. And so, there's definitely something to look at there with Bill Bedenbaugh, and how he feels about how deep this offensive line is, and how much he feels that they've improved since last season, which is something that Oklahoma fans need to hear and want to hear, especially from that offensive line, as I have mentioned several times, is the biggest concern for Oklahoma fans going into this upcoming season. And as far as that depth and competition, Bill Bedenbaugh even mentioned how he really stresses the importance of really pushing through the mid-camp. You start to get into kind of a lull once you get midway through fall camp, and you start to get to that point where you're just ready for the season to come. If everything feels too repetitive, and it feels like you're not really working towards something, at times you can get that feeling. Players can get that feeling when they're going through camp, and he's really worried about them getting that. And he thinks that that's something that kind of happened last season, where he's really pushing and expressing his importance and stressing that on the players not to get into that mid-camp lull where I know we're in that point where it feels repetitive and boring, but we're getting there, guys. We are getting there. So yeah, absolutely. So absolutely something that you want to hear from Bill Bedenbaugh is stressing, pushing to that game one, to that week one. Bill Bedenbaugh even kind of expressed a little bit about working with the staff, working with everybody who's on this offensive staff. It is quite a bit of a different staff overall, and there's a lot of new pieces to this offensive staff. And he talked about working with Ben Arbuckle, kind of comparing him to a young Lincoln Riley, which some Oklahoma fans might not like to hear. But if you take a young Lincoln Riley and what he was for Oklahoma as offensive coordinator, that's a good comp. That's a pretty good comp to be having. He's Bill Bedenbaugh kind of talked about Ben Arbuckle being kind of that smart, very commanding, but also adaptable, kind of, a relatable guy, and then also great collaboration on different protections and run schemes. So, that's something that he mentioned with Ben Arbuckle, a lot of high praise over there on Ben Arbuckle, as well as Kevin Wilson, bringing him back into the fold over to Oklahoma. It's been several years since Kevin Wilson has worked with Oklahoma, but being an analyst, Bill Bedenbaugh kind of talked about him because he brings a deep offensive knowledge. Kevin Wilson does. He has multiple position experience, and offensive line being one of them, which is really helpful for Bill B and what he's able to put into his guys there on the offensive line. And obviously, Kevin Wilson has had a successful track record. When you go into his specific breaking down and thinking of him as a coordinator, I didn't hate him when he was at Indiana. I liked him. I was cheering for him at Indiana. Of course, whenever he went over to Ohio State, I wasn't cheering for him as much because that's another big program. You don't want to root for the big guys. But I think Kevin Wilson, he's had a lot of success in his career. Maybe not so much as a head coach, but as a position coach and as an offensive coordinator, and breaking down. I think this analyst role is really good, and I know Bill Bedenbaugh expressed that when talking to the media earlier this week as well. Even going on and talking about John Mateer. He talked about John Mateer being one of the new guys in the system, and talked about how John Mateer has been active in the offensive line meetings and talked about his leadership. Bill Bedenbaugh praised him for his kind of charisma and how he's able to motivate the offensive line to perform, which is absolutely something that you want from your quarterback. And the fact that your offensive line coach is taking notice of that and mentioning that to the media is some good things to hear from your new your new field general, your new quarterback, and coming from him. And then, of course, another piece that kind of adds to this team as a whole, maybe not necessarily in the coaching staff or on the offense, but Jim Nagy. Bill B even talked a little bit about how much he provides kind of very valuable evaluations and talking about that and kind of freeing coaches to kind of focus on coaching and recruiting and the way that it used to be rather than having to pay attention to all this outside noise with the transfer portal and the NIL and all that stuff, and how Jim Nagy, I mean, that is the biggest part of his role, is how he is able to allow coaches to be coaches again, allow coaches to focus on their jobs as head coaches, offensive coordinators, position coaches, outside of having to do all of the extra work that it comes with in this day and age. So some really good things that I think we heard from Bill Bedenbaugh whenever he came to the media this week. Last thing is really just the overall offensive line progress, kind of talking about how he's never satisfied as a coach. I think that was one thing that I took from his time with the media, and how he's never satisfied. He's always striving for better. Even after winning the Joe Moore Award just a few seasons ago, he feels good about the progress that they make, but he demands it to be continued, and he demands for constant improvement in his room. And he believes that they have everything that they need in order to succeed and keep on seeing that growth. And if that growth keeps on continuing, he really sees a special thing out of this group. Again, a group that is pretty young. Overall, you've got some young guys, maybe not young guys that are going to be starting this season, but you've got young guys that will carry over into the seasons to come and could be doing a lot of big things. So yeah, very excited here. And I loved what I was able to hear from Bill Bedenbaugh. And of course, there was other players as well, but Bill Bedenbaugh, Coach B, that was the one that that I really took a lot from being able to listen to him. I love listening to the coaches, love hearing what they have to say about what they're seeing in practices, what they're seeing from specific players, from their specific group of guys, and it's always enlightening. I think that's the most that you get, especially from guys that are honest with you and honest with the media. Guys like Bill Bedenbaugh that are not afraid to tell you, hey, I love what I'm seeing out of so-and-so, but I also think that we can improve. And here's some improvements that he can make. And that's what you get from Coach Bill Bedenbaugh all the time, as well as I think Brent Venables is another guy that's very, very much like that. And I think he tries to instill that in his guys and his coaches as well. But guys, that's all I've got for you tonight. I appreciate everybody so much for tuning in. Of course, make sure to hit that like button. That's a quick and easy, free way to help support the channel. Hit that subscribe button. Follow us on social media, the Voice of College Football, and as well as Oklahoma, the Voice of College Football. This channel specifically over on social media as well, trying to give out as much content as we can, keep you guys up to date, as well as kind of giving a little bit more of a fun, laid-back way of delivering the news as well, and kind of being interactive. But if you'd like to help support the channel a little bit further, please click that link down in the description below and become a member today for as low as $2.99 a month. It's a great way to help support this channel as we keep on trying new things and trying to keep on growing. Again, it's a very cheap, very easy way to help support this channel. It goes 3 different tiers, and we're going to try to give extra content for those who become a member. So please consider doing that today to help support the channel a little bit further. And of course, like I said, that's all we've got. But I appreciate everybody for tuning in, for all the support, all the love. Again, we'll catch you next time. Boomer.